Hi again, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. And I'm slowly going to get the webinar started. I have Erik van Meegen here, who is my colleague, and he will be moderating the webinar. So whenever during the webinar you have any questions or anything to add, you can either unmute your mic and interrupt me because we're a small group, or you can leave your question in the Q&A or the chat box, and we will check it. And yeah, I'm gonna start sharing the slides. And now we can slowly get started with the webinar, which will be the very first one that we are doing at Alt um, over adaptive keyboards and assistive technology. And this one in particular was created to tell you more about our discussions with occupational therapists and how the keyboards were helpful for them and what features they were looking for. And just in general, after having many discussions with them, we decided that it would be um, very good and very helpful to have a webinar that focuses solely on this topic. And before I tell you about the exact topics we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you a brief introduction of myself. Um, My name is Yasmina Ali Kardashi. I'm originally from Iran, but have been living in the Netherlands in the beautiful Groningen that you have behind me for about 6 years now. And for a while, I have been working at Alt, and Alt has been around for over 20 years. And our brand, which is called Clevy, and you might have heard the name Clevy Keyboards here and there, focuses on education and assistive technology. And especially the assistive technology part is what we are focusing on today. So we create lots of different IT equipments, such as keyboards. And I am very interested in languages, so the job that focuses a lot on keyboards and different layouts and languages was very helpful, and I was lucky enough to get to do this. And the brand Clevy has also been around for over 20 years, so I'm going to tell you more about it during the course of today. And now I can tell you more about the topics, but before doing that, we would like to share this webinar on our channel so people can watch later. So as you know, this webinar will be recorded, and I will turn on the recording right now. Amazing. Oh, I see that it is already recorded. Okay, first time for me. Perfect. And during the webinar, I will tell you about the input that we received after speaking to many occupational therapists and what they thought were essential features for assistive technology, especially in adaptive keyboards, and who are the users that usually need them and why. And after that, we will also go over the essential trials and fundings that you would need for assistive technology, and I can give you some examples. And after that, in the end, I also would love to hear your feedback. I know that many of you have worked in the industry or experts on the matter, and yeah, I'd like to hear more from your side as well. But as I said during the webinar, whenever you can think of anything, just interrupt me or drop a comment in the chat. All right. So a few months ago, we decided to reach out to occupational therapists, seeing as a lot of our clients were occupational therapists looking to help their patients. Then that's when we decided to start gathering our content, and we reached out to them via email, via phone, and we asked them several questions, and that is what we'll be going over today. One of the first questions that we asked them was, what are the main challenges that your clients usually face when they're using a standard keyboard? And how do you identify when a client actually needs an adaptive keyboard, something different that not everyone uses? And their answers had a wide range. They especially focused on motor impairment. So anyone who has difficulty handling small objects, uh, and especially for keyboards, there might be frequent mistypes and accidentally pressing a key that they do not mean to. And that could be people who have spasticity or tremors, And spasticity is especially high muscle tone around wrists and around bones, and that makes very rapid movements difficult, especially after a stroke. And they would prefer devices that would allow them to practice slower movements. That's why they would need adaptive keyboards. Or anyone with limited dexterity. And that could also go for people with visual challenges or cognitive challenges. And then we went on to ask them which clients groups are the ones that you usually work with, and where do these challenges and needs usually come from, and where do you get your input? And they had similar answers to give us. First, a lot of the occupational therapists that we spoke to seem to work with children, especially children with motor impairment, who had cerebral palsy or dyspraxia, but it could also be just adults with neurodegenerative conditions, or just any individuals that has gone through paralysis or strokes. And also, a few of the occupational therapists that we spoke to seem to focus on more visual impairments and people with low vision or people with cognitive disabilities. So there was a wide range of people we spoke to, all of which did fall under what we try to work on at Clevy at Alt. And so we decided to categorize what we learned. We had three categories of visual impairment, motor impairment, and cognitive impairment. Visual, such as farsightedness, color blindness, and motor impairment, such as cerebral palsy, dyspraxia. Cognitive impairments, such as people on the spectrum, people with Down syndrome, or people with PDA. And so from that, we understood which use stories and which stories from our clients would be most useful for these occupational therapists to put out there, and how to get the best assistive technology to them. And now I can tell you a little bit about the story of Alt. Alt as the Alt that you would have on a keyboard, ALT, or as an alternative, because those are the products that we try to put out there. Something that is adaptive and different from the typical norm. And especially for adaptive keyboards, our products will not be used by people out there that will have just the normal typical needs. And so they will need different sets of features on them. And for over 20 years, we have been trying to do that. And our main effort and our main goal is to develop the products with the end users and the professionals, such as yourselves. And this is part of that as well. So gathering all the insights from occupational therapists, arranging webinars such as this one, is to learn more about what is missing, what is the next step, what is okay and can stay. And that is why we asked the next question to the occupational therapist, and it was, what features are mostly essential to you when you're recommending a new keyboard or an adaptive keyboard to people that falls under any of those categories that we mentioned, so visual, motor, or cognitive impairment. And we saw a lot of alignments with the product and what we were trying to provide. And now I can tell you a little bit more about the products and the use stories that we have for each of them. And of course, then I would have to start with our flagship product, the Clevy Keyboard. So the Clevy Keyboard is the first product that we produced under our brand, and we developed it with input that we got from people with visual or motor impairment and from professionals working in the industry. So they were present while we were developing the product and designing, and we came up with very cool ideas. And something that is very important for you to know is that in the beginning, we did not develop the Clevy Keyboard as an assistive technology product. So the Clevy Keyboard was first introduced in order to help kids in schools learn how to type with a keyboard. And that is why we have the very interesting color coding. And while it's very attractive and very fun to look at, that is not all it does. The color coding has a meaning behind it. So different areas on this keyboard will have different meaning to them. So you have the numbers in red, you have the consonants in dark blue, you have the vowels in light blue, and you have the function keys in green and the rest in orange. And that's when you know that in a classroom, if a kid hears, oh, can you type the number 23, they know instinctively to move to the red area. And that's how they learn to work with the keyboard. And while the color coding is certainly very attractive and helpful to kids, we started seeing, it was around the time that we started seeing that this color coding also was helpful to people on the spectrum, for instance. It was easier for them to recognize, and it was easier for them to find different keys in different areas of the keyboard. But there were other features that made the keyboard more attractive to different groups. For instance, the Clevy keyboard has a very solid construction. So I have brought actually a Clevy keyboard with me today just to show you that this is a big keyboard. So the size is much larger than what you would have on a normal keyboard, and it is very heavy and sturdy. And to give you a comparison, a good typical keyboard would stand up to 6 million keystrokes, whereas the Clevy keyboard is designed to stand up to 60 million. And these are mechanical keyboards, which means that they register the output mid-press. And each of the keys on the Clevy keyboard is about 30% bigger than what you have on a typical keyboard. And each of the letters is about 4 times bigger than what you would have. And here is when we noticed that people with visual impairment were also using the keyboard because of how large the letters were. And the difference in colors was very helpful for them to recognize and to see the letters and characters. Other than that, you might currently have a typical keyboard in front of you at the moment. And if you do, if you look at that, chances are that not every key is directly placed underneath the other one. However, because in the Clevy keyboard, since they are already very large, we were going for a less cluttered and less busy layout. We decided that we will have a vertical arrangement, so each key would be directly placed underneath the other. And what do you know? That is also very helpful for people with motor impairment or low dexterity to find the key that they are actually looking for and to avoid mistypes. And since this keyboard was in the beginning designed for children, we decided to introduce the lowercase layout so that they will not get distracted or confused by why they are pressing a capital A and getting a small a instead, since this is to help them learn to type. But when we heard that more people, even adults and other individuals, are learning to use the keyboard and find it helpful, we decided to introduce the uppercase layout and different layouts in other languages. We currently have over 30 language layouts of the Clevy keyboards in its different versions. So here is when I want to introduce one of our use cases to you. And this is the story of Leo. So I had the opportunity to speak to Leo's mom, Police, and she was very nice and kind enough to provide us the story of Leo and when he had started using the Clevy keyboard. So he had been at this point using the Clevy keyboard for a few years now. And Leo was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, and PDA, and that is pathological demand avoidance. So he had trouble focusing on certain tasks and getting them done. And he had trouble using a typical keyboard and placing the different areas of the areas and characters on those keyboards. And that is why he was using the Clevy keyboard. And what she liked, other than the color coding, is that they could offer the uppercase and the lowercase layout. So she had previously the uppercase keyboard, and after that, for school, for him, they also purchased the lowercase layout. And she was very happy with it because of that. And another good example is the story of Lotte. So Lotte had Down syndrome. However, she was very talented and still is. And she was very rapidly learning how to type on the keyboard. And I would like to take some time to show you a brief video of her typing her name for the first time. So I will quickly play the video for you. So this was just to show you that where the Clevy keyboards are used and which features are usually useful um, for people with which conditions. And since the Clevy keyboard, the multicolored Clevy keyboard was used because of the large letters for people with visual impairment as well, we decided to create a Clevy keyboard that will be directly for people with visual impairment, and that's when we created the Clevy Contrast Keyboard. So the Clevy Contrast Keyboard, in terms of the size, in terms of the mechanical keys, the vertical key arrangement, is exactly the same as the Clevy keyboard. The only thing that is different is the colors. So if you look closely at the alphabet and the letters on this keyboard, you will see that they are in black and white, while the rest of the keyboard is in white and black. And that creates a contrast that just attracts the eye towards the letters and helps people find the letters faster. I have to say here that no two visual impairments are necessarily the same. So the color combination that you have on the Clevy Contrast Keyboard is not necessarily useful for everyone who has a visual impairment because they might have different conditions. So we went with the color combination that will help the majority of people we were in touch with. And later on, we also created different alternatives for them, but I will tell you about that later on in the webinar. Now, to another story, I want to introduce you to Michael with her mom, Cynthia. And Cynthia was very nice to help us write a blog about Michael and his use of Clevy Keyboard and other Clevy products. Michael was on the spectrum, and he is nonverbal as well, but has been using the Clevy keyboard successfully for a long time. He is very fit in using it at the moment because he has been now using it to study as well. He's older now. And every use story that I tell you, all the stories that I tell you here, we have also written a blog about them that is fully available on the website. So you could have more information about each of these people later on by going to the clevy.com website. But I just wanted to give you a sneak peek into that. Now, as the Clevy keyboards started becoming more of an assistive product, we decided to add features that will help them become an adaptive keyboard. One of such features was that the Clevy keyboards are spill-proof. Now, an important differentiation is that they are not waterproof. So if they were to be sunk in water, they would drown. So the best way to describe this is that if you have a cup of water, tea, coffee that pours over the Clevy keyboards, there are drainage holes placed underneath the keyboards, and the water will go around the dams that we have built around each of the keycaps. You can see that in the picture, and runs away from underneath the keyboard, and your keyboard will be safe. That is very useful. Why? Because we heard from a lot of our users that they had tremors and they did not have enough control over their muscles. That is especially the case with people who might have Parkinson's disease, for instance. And this feature would be very useful for them and save them a lot of time. Another feature that we wanted to add on the keyboard is because we heard that some of the users would need to rest their hands on the keyboards, and sometimes they would hold and press a key without wanting to, and have many of the same outputs, so HHH written out, for instance. Since that was a problem that we heard a lot from the users, we decided to add this little switch in the back of the keyboard. So the little switch goes between key repeat and function keys tools. Once you turn off key repeat, if you press and hold a letter, let's say H, you will not get HHHH written out. You will get only one output. And by turning off key repeat, you will turn on the function keys tools. And to explain that to you, I have my Clevy keyboard here. And if you have a keyboard in front of you, you will see that at the top row, you will have the function keys F1 to F12. Because of the less cluttered, more minimalized layout of the Clevy keyboard, it is not the case for the Clevy keyboard. So we do not have the F1 to F12 buttons. However, because we had many individuals, a lot of adults that were using the keyboard now, we decided to also include those. So by turning on the switch, you can simply hold F and 1 and have the function of F1, F and 2 and have the function of F2. And this was very important, especially for older kids who were using the Clevy keyboard, so they wanted to have more sophisticated use and more access. And for instance, I can tell you about Kobe. Now, in all the stories that I tell you, this one is perhaps the newest and most close to our hearts. A few months ago, we received a very well-written, handwritten letter from a 13-year-old boy called Kobe, who was born and raised in Belgium, and who was diagnosed with developmental coordination disorder. So he had been using the Clevy keyboards for around 8 years, 10 years, if I'm not mistaken, and he had taught himself how to type using the Clevy keyboards. And that was very interesting for us. And after that, Kobe also did a bike race and a fundraiser, 100K, for all children with DCD. And that was also very nice to learn and to know. And we do have the letter. It's one of the main things that we keep at Alt as a souvenir. And we are very happy to have received that. And it's stories like this when you know that you really need to produce these products with the users, because that's when you can make it most useful for them. And before I move to the next slide, I wanted to ask if there are any questions. You can leave them in the comments or the chat, or at any point again, you could just interrupt. Otherwise, I will also keep an eye on the chat. Otherwise, what I wanted to tell you is that the Clevy keyboards have gone through many different versions. So as I told you in the beginning, they were created for kids and their education. Then we added some new features to make them more assistive. So we had different versions of the Clevy keyboard. Right now we are on the third version of our Clevy keyboards. And this version is very new. We just launched it, and it's a more assistive keyboards, and we added newer features to it. For instance, we decided to work a lot with different shortcuts and communicate with lights, especially for people with visual impairment. That would be useful. And now I can tell you a little about the new features that we added and why they were important. And these were comments that we received from our previous users that said, oh, this is great, but this is what I am missing. For instance, we had a user that could not feel when they were typing something. So because their fingers were numb, they could not feel whether or not they pressed a button. And that is what gave us the idea to create this function called input detection. So by pressing a shortcut, this shortcut, for instance, is Control plus Alt-GR on the Clevy keyboard. You turn on the input detection function. And after that, each time you press one of the keys, the LED lights up. And that's how you know that you have actually touched and typed something. And this visual feedback is very important to someone who is numb in the fingers and cannot have the tactile feedback. And after this, we got a lot of comments that said, So this is great. However, with the LED lights, these are too bright. And we said what we can do is by turning on another shortcut, you get a function that will allow you to turn the LED lights up to 100%, 50%, 0%. So they can adjust it to however makes their eyes feel as comfortable as possible because it is not the same for everyone. Another story we heard is that not everyone, especially for people with motor impairment this time, is able to press two keys that are far apart on the keyboard. For instance, if you want to create a capital P and the Shift key and the P are far apart from each other, it is not easy for everyone to press them at the same time. That's when you get sticky keys. By turning on this function, you can make one of the keys sticky, so you make the Shift key sticky, and the function of the Shift remains. You separately press P, and you get a capital P. So the function of one of the keys remains for a period of time while you separately press another key. And that is very useful for someone who cannot do that simultaneously. And my favorite one is the alphabetical layout. So this story was this creativity. We are not going to take credit for it because alphabetical keyboard have been around for quite a while. And especially for people with cognitive challenges, the alphabet and that order might be the only thing that they can learn, and that is okay. They still might need to type and communicate. And that is when they would prefer to use an alphabetical ABCDE layout instead of what you would have as in QWERTY, AZERTY, and all the things that you know on different keyboards. So we decided that we will have the option to turn the same keyboard to alphabetical layouts by turning on a shortcut that will make the keyboard now set in ABCD layout, and the user can simply switch the keys like Legos to the alphabetical layout. And while that might not be the best solution for everyone, it is certainly a good option to have. So we decided to add that. And now I think you know a lot more about the Clevy keyboards and the contrast keyboard, so all the different versions. And you're all experts as much as I am now. But what I wanted to tell you is that the Clevy keyboard is just one part of the combination, especially for people with motor impairment. And what makes it complete is to pair it with the Clevy Keyguard. So what is the Clevy Keyguard? The Clevy Keyguard allows you to put this additional add-on on top of Clevy Keyboard. And for people who have tremors, for people who do not have enough control over their muscles, they can rest their hands on top of the keyboards while typing. This minimizes any tremors and allows them to type while resting their hands. And especially if they tend to press accidental keys while wanting to type, which is the case for a lot of our users, maybe 50% of the cases that ask for the keyboard for assistive use is because they have mistypes. That is why each of the keys are now placed in individual rooms or houses, and they can press only the key that they mean to press because it creates a separation. So the Clevy Keyguard for people with motor impairment is particularly useful. A story that I have here for you is for Joe, who had rheumatoid arthritis and neuropathy. So he had both a visual and a motor impairment. And he wanted to use the contrast keyboard with the keyguard. And I can just show you a little bit because he was still working. However, he could not use the office keyboards anymore. And that is why he wanted to use something a bit larger with the contrast differentiation in keys and to be able to rest his hand on top of the keyboards while typing. And that allowed him to avoid any mistypes and saved him a lot of time. And now you know a little more about Joe. And one other story that we heard that actually prompted us to develop a full product and a full add-on is we heard from one of our users that they had they wanted to purchase the Clevy keyboards for their brother who had Parkinson's, and he needed to work, and all the time he had coffee with him. So there were a lot of accidents, and thank God that the Clevy keyboards are spill-proof. However, it is not easy to clean every time if you have a coffee accident. Then we decided that for people who might also need some extra protection, then we would add a silicone cover on top of the Clevy keyboard. And then we had to find the right balance so that the cover doesn't tear up so easily, but it is also not so thick that the keyboard is covered. And that would now be very beneficial with someone who has visual impairment. So these are all the different things that we wanted to think about when it comes to the keyboards and the add-ons. I did tell you in the beginning that we developed the Clevy keyboards for children's educations and for them to learn how to type. And while doing so, we also had a software that helped us do so called ABC Maestro. So ABC Maestro is a fun software for kids, and usually it is for kids between 3 and 10, 3 and 9. And what they can do is they learn how to type on the Clevy keyboard using the software. I can show you a little sneak peek into the software and what it does.
Welcome to the specially designed world of ABC Maestro software. Choose between activities of learning letters, words, or numbers. When learning letters, freely explore the keyboard.
U is for umbrella.
Or learn the alphabetic order.
A is for apple.
After you have learned,
So through different games and different prompts, they can learn how to type. And that is very useful for them. And this time we had also thought that this would be useful only to kids who want to learn how to type at school. That is until we spoke to Nynke. So Nynke is an occupational therapist, and she works at Physio. And in Physio in the Netherlands has 6 schools across the country, and they specialize in helping kids with special educations, and these are individuals between 4 to 20. So they do a variety of lessons and classes for different people with different needs. And in many of their classes, as Nynke told us, they use the Clevy keyboards with the ABC Maestro software. And they treat ABC Maestro levels as levels that they would need to complete in order to pass a test. So let's say that if they can pass the alphabetical order game, they have passed a test and they can type. And that allows them to type by themselves. So I had an interview with Nynke a few weeks ago. What she was telling me was very interesting. She said that in a lot of the classes, the essay that they will have to write at the end of the year is to just write something about their summer vacation. So that would be their achievement throughout the class. And with ABC Maestro, they teach them how to type and how to communicate over the course of the class so that they achieve the skill to type normally on the Clevy keyboard. And that was very interesting for me that they used it so creatively in their classroom and their curriculum. And so I think now you know a lot about the Clevy keyboards and the Clevy add-ons. If you remember, I did tell you that not all visual impairments are the same, and I did say that I will let you know about alternatives that we prepared for those, and that is the Alt ClearKeys. So the Alt ClearKeys is under our other brand Alt, and we heard a lot from individuals, especially people who were older and wanted to use the keyboard in the office, that they did not need the Clevy keyboards because it was very large, and they did not need the features that were specially designed for motor impairment. They were looking for something closer to a typical keyboard. That is why the Alt ClearKeys by size and looks is a typical keyboard. Um, However, there are features that makes it more suited to people with visual impairment, and the first and the more noticeable one being that you have very large font yellow keycaps. Now, in the Clevy Contrast, we had the contrast on black on white. However, sometimes it is more um, accessible for people to have the contrast of black on yellow, and that just goes based on their needs, and there is no differentiation. And sometimes they prefer the multicolored Clevy keyboard for their visual impairment. And in this one, we try to use abbreviations on the function keys. So, for instance, instead of home, we wrote HM. Instead of page up, PU. Instead of page down, PD. And these abbreviations made the letters and the characters bolder and easy to spot. And we decided to also use icons, multimedia icons, on top of the function keys instead of mixing them with the keys F1 to F12. So if you have F1 to F12 on your keyboard right now, you see that they are most of the time mixed in with the icon that is next to them. However, to make this bolder and more visible, we decided to add this on top of the keyboard instead of on the keys themselves. And we added for scroll lock, for num lock, for caps lock, we added the lights in a red color. We still have pictures of when we were developing this with people with low vision, showing them, would this color of light work? They would say, oh no, that's too bright, or that does not really feel like anything is on at the moment, because what you have most of the time on a typical keyboard for num lock, caps lock, scroll lock is a light blue or light green light, and that wasn't even visible for them. So what could be most different from yellow and black? And they chose red. And while it might still not work for every single person, that is what the majority agreed on that was most visible to them. And still, we wanted to make the keys tactile and feel as simple to type with as possible. And that is why they have a concave feel to them. And interesting fact, because these keys are, they look like chocolates in the keyboard world, they're called the chocolate keycaps. And that is something you can take away from today. And still, for this keyboard, especially because a lot of our users had older age, they wanted to still be able to rest their hands on top of the keyboard sometimes. So we decided to develop a keyguard for this one as well, and add the multimedia icons on top of the keyguard too, so that it does not cover them. So as you see, they told us what they were thinking and what they were missing. Oh, I want to rest my hand on top of the keyboard. And they said, then a keyguard is needed for this version as well. And none of this would have been possible if it hadn't been for their feedback. For instance, a good story that I have for you here is from Cleo. So Cleo is a film student with cerebral palsy. She is from the US. A few months back, her mom reached out to us and said that Cleo uses the ClearKeys at school, and her teacher asked her to also purchase one for home use with the keyguard. And because she had a lot of mistypes in her assignments, and that was slowing her down, and talented as she is, she wants to be faster and use something that is helpful for her visual impairment as well as helpful with her motor impairment. And yeah, so she was very kind, and we were lucky enough that she decided to share this with us. And I think now you know all about the Clevy and Alt products and what we discussed with the users, with different occupational therapists like Nynke. And a question that we asked a lot of these people, something that was very important for us to know, was how to make assistive technology more available to people out there. So we asked them, how involved are you in selecting and trialing and funding assistive keyboard solutions, and what resources are put out there? And this is also something that I'd like to ask you if you have any knowledge about that. For instance, a good example of this would be in Germany. There is a number that assistive products can acquire called the Hilfsmittelnummer. And that means a product that has this number can be purchased through insurance. So the cost of the product, the assistive product, is covered if they have an EU MDR. That means they are a medical product. So they have the certification for the medical product, which the Clevy keyboards and add-ons and the ClearKeys do have. And that is why we acquired this number for our products as well, to be able to offer it to people who need it. And so we gained this knowledge also through talking to a lot of professionals, occupational therapists, who were looking to get this number for these adaptive keyboards. And then we asked around for other countries. For instance, in Poland, you do not need to have any number for any assistive product that has the EU MDR certification. They will just have a lower VAT rate. And in some countries, these products are simply prescribed, such as in Italy. And so if you have any other information on this, it is certainly useful so we can get this out there to more people. But I wanted to let you know that for people with accessibility and assistive needs, there are certainly resources out there that get the products available to them easily. And that is what we are trying to do. And finally, to everyone that we spoke to, because as I told you to start with, our goal was to learn what is the next step, what can we keep, what can we add. So we asked them if you could change or add one thing, one feature to the already present features, what would be most important to you. We had many different stories, many things that they wished. I had a client who said, oh, I would like to get the ABC Maestro software available in French. That is something that she was looking for. So we contacted the editor to see if that is possible. Another said, oh, I would like to have the uppercase Belgian Clevy keyboard. So we also collect these to see how many clients are there that require this type of keyboard. And these are all good knowledge and good things for us to know. Some questions that we usually ask them is what challenges do you usually face that we can help develop with the products? What tools could be beneficial? What features could be beneficial? And are there any other newer client groups that we should be focusing on? A very popular response that I got to this one was, how about other than low vision, you also focus on people with blindness, blind people? And that is something interesting for us to look into, for instance. So before I thank you and just have a lot of appreciation for you all to join, I wanted to also ask you all these questions if you have any questions so far or know the answers to these ones. So I'm just gonna give you all a few minutes. You can either unmute yourself or drop something in the comments and I will have a look. I will also open my Q&A box. Yes. Also want to thank Eric for moderating the webinar for us today. Thank you very much. And I see all the questions were written out during the webinar. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, so I also wanted to say, like, in addition to what Yasmina already said, this is our first webinar, and we are planning on doing more sessions like these. It was initially directed to occupational therapists, but we also want to open the doors for everyone who is interested in learning more about adaptive keyboards. And I think one of our biggest question that we have is how could we improve this webinar, and how can we reach out to more occupational therapists and maybe like other people that could be useful in the process of selecting adaptive keyboards, and also what are topics that we might we could like cover in the future that yeah, that could definitely like benefit from this conversation that we're trying to start with a lot of people. Yeah, is there something that anyone would like to share, or maybe maybe like partake in a specific conversation? If not, then yeah, that's also fine, and we'll have to like probably like round it up.
Sure. And at any point, oh yeah, see, yeah. At any point, if you wish to refer back to anything, this webinar will be soon available on our channels as well. So you can go check out any parts that you need. And as I said, the user stories are available in shapes of blogs. And there is more of them also on our website, so you can have a look at those. And general, I wanted to thank you guys for joining. And any point, if you have any questions about anything, please reach out to us. I will be stopping the presentation at the moment. Yes. And I will also stop the recording at this point.